Hello and welcome to Wake Up with RT Sports. I'm Jeff Power, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. I'm flying solo today. My son, who usually joins me in the mornings here for Wake Up with RT Sports, is playing in the baseball tournament. Logan Glasser also is a contributor and helps me out here as well, but he's really busy with customers this morning here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. So you're flying solo with me this morning. I'm happy to join everybody, though, for Wake Up with RT Sports. Really excited about this Week 3 edition. There are a ton of inactives and actives that we need to go over for this morning. The afternoon games are also a bit of a mess as well, so we'll talk about that. And as always, do not hesitate at all to ask me a question here. You can leave it in the stream, you can leave it right in the comments, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. And also, you can leave it on my Twitter page as well. It's at Jeff Power, JEFFPAUR. So if you want to leave a question there too, I will be checking that periodically throughout the stream. But let's get to these early inactives. A lot to talk about. So I'm going to pull it up here. You can look at it on the page. I'll do them in order of the games here as we go across the screen. But Houston, Chicago is the first one. Not really anything of note there. The rookie Velez Jones is out as well. I always have trouble pronouncing his first name. But regardless, Jones is out for Chicago. That's really the only one of note. There was really not a lot of 50-50 calls with that game, so nothing too important to talk about there. Let's move on to Las Vegas and Tennessee, though. Now that has some important inactives and actives. The big one is Josh Jacobs. He is active for the game. Now, he did not make the trip with the team originally, but he flew out there yesterday, I believe. He had an illness. I'm not sure what the illness is. You can't speculate here on what he was dealing with. They didn't really announce it, but he is active. I guess he's doing just fine. He'll be active for the game, and I'm not sure he's going to be too limited. Again, it's not an injury he's dealing with. It's an illness. So Jacobs is active for the Week 3 game for Las Vegas, so he should get the starting role and most of the work at running back, in my view, just dealing with an illness here. So I'd still feel pretty good about playing him this week personally. So Josh Jacobs is active for Las Vegas. And in Tennessee, not really anything of note there that we need to talk about. Kyle Phillips is scratched. He's been serving as the slot receiver and done a pretty good job, but he's out this week. And Hunter Renfrow, too. This was known already, though, with Las Vegas. I didn't mean to skip that, but he's out as well. He has dealt with a concussion he suffered. I think it was on the last play of the game last week. He got hit, fumbled the ball, and they lost the game as Arizona returned it for a touchdown. But Hunter Renfrow is scratched for Las Vegas. So that's a pretty big loss at receiver for them. Maybe Devontae Adams gets a bump in targets this week. Didn't really get a lot of looks that last week, but he is set up, I think, for a big week against Tennessee. Also, Darren Waller at tight end. He had a good game last week, but maybe he gets it going even more this week with Hunter Renfrow out of the lineup. Kansas City, Indianapolis. That's the next game I want to look at here. Harrison Butker, we already knew this. He's out. He's still hurt. He was announced as out earlier in the week, though, so not a big surprise there. And with Indianapolis, not really much to talk about there. Nothing really of note. No really game time decisions with those teams. So that's the Kansas City, Indianapolis ones. Buffalo, Miami. Now we had some game time decisions here with Buffalo. Gabe Davis, he is healthy. He will play this week. He had dealt with an ankle injury, suffered in practice the previous week, missed that game, and he is healthy to play. Dawson Knox, another player that was questionable to play. He is active for this game. He has a foot injury, but he is going to play. Miami has not been good against the tight ends this year. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. If you want to use Dawson Knox, thinking about streaming a tight end this week and not sure who to use, I would consider Knox in this matchup. He could do well. In Miami, not really anything of note here. Myles Gaskin, a healthy scratch once again, but they're pretty healthy right now. In Buffalo, too, we can't skip over the secondary. Bit of a mess right now. Jordan Poyer, he's out. Jordan Phillips is out as well. That defense is really beat up, especially in the secondary. So I had a lot of questions about Tua, whether or not to start him this week. He had that monster game last week, just had a huge performance. 6 touchdowns, just carried fantasy teams to victory. I still think he's a good play this week, even though Buffalo has a good defense. They have a lot of injuries in that secondary. I still think they're going to be able to throw the ball well in Miami. So I would feel comfortable starting Tua this week. I still think he's a good option. Kind of a low end number one fantasy quarterback in my view. So I'd still plug Tua in the lineup if you want to use him this week. Detroit, Minnesota, the next game to talk about. So Detroit had some players on the fence to play. DeAndre Swift, I really didn't have a doubt he was going to play since he played last week, and they talked about him being healthier this week, but he is officially active. I'm hoping he gets more than 7 touches this week. I think that could be the case, definitely. In a game that should be a shootout, I think this is going to be a really high-scoring game. TJ Hawkinson, another player that was questionable, game time decision. He is active for this game. He has a hip injury, but he is going to play. Minnesota, not really anything of note, not really any game time decisions for them. So Detroit, DeAndre Swift is up. Hawkinson's up as well. So I think there's two pretty good plays in the game that should be high scoring. Again, I would get as many fantasy players as possible involved in that matchup. So should be a good one. Detroit, Minnesota, a lot of points on the board there for fantasy teams. Baltimore, New England. So J.K. Dobbins makes his debut this week. He is active, finally returns from his torn ACL. He had a lot of other stuff that went on with that injury too. So he had a long road back, but he's healthy. He is going to play. And Kenyon Drake is a healthy scratch. He had been starting, hadn't really done a whole lot in that starting role. So J.K. Dobbins is back. I think he's set up to get a lot of work this week, especially with Kenyon Drake out. They have to feel pretty good about Dobbins being healthy enough to play and carry a pretty good workload there. So I think Dobbins is a sneaky little play for fantasy teams if you want to take a chance this week. Again, first game back from major injury, but still, I think he could get a lot of work in this matchup. So I'd feel pretty comfortable playing him if you're looking for a flex play at that running back spot. Number 2, I'd be a little worried about him, just because you're not sure how much work he's going to get. But that's a flex option. I'd consider playing Drake in this matchup. And with New England, Jacoby Myers, he was a game time decision. He is out, been dealing with a knee injury. They had him checked out earlier in the week. He seemed to avoid anything too serious, but he's still not healthy enough to play this week. And this is a great matchup for the Patriots receivers. Baltimore's been dreadful against the pass. So I kind of like, those options for New England in the passing game. Nelson Aguilar, somebody I'd consider playing this week. He had a big game last week. He could end up leading that unit in touches at receiver and targets as well. So you might want to consider playing him. Cincinnati, New York Jets. Hayden Hurst, he is active. He was on the fence with a groin injury, but he is going to play with New York. Not really much of note there. Denzel Mims, a healthy scratch once again, but Cincinnati Jets, the only really one to talk about there is Hayden Hurst. He is active and not a bad play for fantasy teams. He's been getting some looks in that offense. Philadelphia, Washington. Again, another game with not a lot on the fence here. Not really anything of note to talk about there. The only thing was Washington. You saw pregame, the rookie Brian Robinson was actually running routes, catching passes. He looked really good. That was all over the Twitterverse there. You could look at that out there and see him catching passes. If you want to search that, I would encourage it because it's really kind of a cool story. The guy got shot just a few weeks ago. He's already out catching passes. So looks like he could be back sooner than later. If he's out there on your waiver wire, I'd go grab him. He was slated to start to open the season. A lot of teams dropped him after the unfortunate incident of him being shot, but it looks like he's doing well and he's close to playing. So good kudos to Brian Robinson for making a great recovery there. The last game is New Orleans at Carolina. There were some things to talk about here. Taysom Hill, he is out. He had a rib injury. He is not going to play. And Tony Jones is a healthy scratch. Tony Jones Jr., he was the top backup last week, but Alvin Kamara is healthy, back in the lineup. He had been dealing with rib injuries as well, just like Taysom Hill, but he is healthy enough to play, and he is going to play this week. So I get Kamara in the lineup if you were on the fence about playing him because of the injury. He is active, and he should play a pretty big role in that game against Carolina. So let's recap real quick. I'll go over all the major ones of note. Here real quick, rapid fire here, the inactives for the early games and actives. Josh Jacobs, he will play for the Raiders. He had been dealing with an illness, but he's in the lineup. The Bills, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, both active. Gabe Davis had an ankle injury, Dawson Knox foot injury. They are active and will play this week. With the Lions, DeAndre Swift, he is active. TJ Hawkinson, active as well. Swift played last week on this ankle injury. Didn't get a lot of touches, supposedly more healthy this week, so hopefully he gets a little more work. He still was a good fantasy play last week despite not getting a ton of action in that game, just 7 touches, but still produced well. Hawkinson is active. He has a hip injury, but he is going to play. Baltimore, J.K. Dobbins makes his season debut for the Ravens. He will play. Kenyon Drake is a healthy scratch. He will not play. So to me, that says Dobbins is healthy and they feel good about him playing, and he should get a pretty good workload in his first game back from his torn ACL. Jacoby Myers in New England. He is out with a knee injury. He will not play this week for New England. It's unfortunate because they have a good matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. Hayden Hurst, he is active with the Cincinnati Bengals. He had a groin injury, but he is going to play. He is up. Alvin Kamara, he is up for the Saints. Rib injury he's been dealing with, missed last week, but he will play this week. Tony Jones Jr. is a healthy scratch at running back for the Saints with Kamara back in the lineup. And Taysom Hill is inactive for the Saints because of a rib injury that he's dealing with, so he will not play. Kind of been hit or miss for fantasy teams this year with his usage for the Saints, but he will not play this week. I have to get to these late games, though. Let me look real quick, see if anybody has any questions. Nobody has any questions right now. If you have any, again, feel free to post them on here. I'm more than happy to answer any start-sit questions you might have. But I want to get to these late games as well. There's a lot to talk about here. Unfortunately, it's going to make for some tough decisions for fantasy teams, especially the Los Angeles Chargers game, I should say. Justin Herbert, a true game time decision. He's dealing with a rib cartilage injury. They're talking about giving him an injection. Unfortunately, we remember what happened last time they did that with the quarterback there last year. That he got that injection, ended up breaking some ribs, I believe, and he was out for a long time. It was Tyrod Taylor. So it's kind of a risky proposition in my view to play Herbert. He's truly a game time decision. That game's in the afternoon. I think if you have better options that are only available for the noon games, I'd go with them. I think Herbert's a big risk, even if he plays. Really painful injury to deal with, these rib injuries. Apparently, the rib cartilage injury, from what I've been reading, is more painful than dealing with broken ribs. So it's really kind of scary situation to use Herbert, in my opinion. So if you have better options, I go with him. I'm not sure about Chase Daniels. So if you want to hold out, and see if Herbert plays and then go with Daniels a backup, if you can pick him up, I'm not sure that's a great play personally. Daniels, a solid backup, done well throughout his career when given the opportunity to play, but he's not really a big play guy in that offense. So I'm not really too high on Chase Daniel if you have to fall back on him. I'd rather go with somebody like, if you're holding out hope, uh, if you're holding out, with Jared Goff as a possibility, or Trevor Lawrence. If you have them as your backup to Herbert, I would just go with them personally and leave Herbert on the bench. I think he's more than likely not going to play. He's pushing to play apparently, but again, I think it's a big risk even if he plays. I would just steer clear of Herbert personally for this week unless you really don't have any good options on your bench. Keenan Allen also in that game. He's still considered a true game time decision. He'll test out that hamstring before the game. There haven't really been any reports one way or the other about him being active for that game. So again, a true game time call. I think if he's active, it's tough to sit him because he's such a dynamic player. So if you have options that you can use in those afternoon games, or somebody with the Sunday night game or Monday night game instead of Allen, it's just in case he is inactive. I would still consider playing Allen this week. But again, if you only have early games and you're waiting on this Allen call and you want to take I'm not sure he's worth the risk, because he's really truly a game time decision. So Herbert, in my opinion, I would just leave him on my bench personally, because I think he's just dealing with a bad situation there with those ribs. Keenan Allen, again, game time decision. We'll know that before the game, roughly around 2 o'clock, we should have a decision on him. Another afternoon one is James Conner. Now, the reports for him are much better. He's dealing with an ankle injury, he suffered that last week, but he's considered questionable. But there's been a lot of talk that he is trending towards playing and he should be good to go this week. So I would feel a little better about him than those other guys I just talked about, Allen and Herbert. So if you have James Conner, it's looking good for him to play this week. But again, that's an afternoon game. I would feel better if I had their backups on my bench. So like an Eno Benjamin, Darrell Williams. So if you have them and you're holding out hope for Conner, I think it's fine to just wait and go that route with Connor. So if you want to do that, totally fine with that. But it's looking like James Conner is going to play for the Arizona Cardinals today. Jerry Jeudy, he is on track to play against San Francisco 49ers. He is dealing with a chest injury. He got hurt last week. I think they're calling it a sternum injury, but he's carrying a questionable tag for that game. But it's looking like he is good to go for that afternoon game for the Denver Broncos. Tampa Bay, they have a lot going on there. Chris Godwin is out still, and then Mike Evans got suspended. He will not play this week, and their receivers are beat up as well. Brashard Perryman has a knee injury, Russell Gage a hamstring injury. Both of those guys are expected to play, though, in this game this week. They're playing the Green Bay Packers today in the afternoon game, so they're expected to play. They're carrying questionable tags, but they're expected to go. Julio Jones now, he's more up in the air. He has a knee injury. He's going to test it out before the game to see if he's able to play. So he's more up in the air. True game time decision for Julio Jones. But it looks like Brashard Perryman, Russell Gage will go for the Bucs. Leonard Fournette is another Tampa Bay player that's carrying a questionable tag with a hamstring injury. He played last week, though, and I'm feeling good about him playing this week as well. All reports are pretty encouraging for him to play this week. Still considered questionable. It looks like he's going to play in that game. Now, with Green Bay in that game, they have some injuries as well. Christian Watson, he is listed as questionable, not expected to play against Tampa Bay, though. He's on the downside of that questionable with all the reports out there for his status. Now, Randall Cobb, he's listed as questionable as well, but he's expected to play this week. He could have a pretty big role with Sammy Watkins out. He got placed on IR, so we know Watkins is officially out for Green Bay. So Green Bay likely out Christian Watson, but Randall Cobb should play, could have a big role with Allen Lazard as the top two passing game options for the Green Bay Packers. So again, some tough calls with those afternoon games. I hate to say it. So that's not, it's going to be tough for fantasy teams to deal with that. I want to talk about something we're running here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, our DFSM Pick'em games. So feel free to get in those. A lot of fun. RTSports.com/DFS. Then hyphen Pick'em. That's how you get to that. So we're having Lamar Jackson. He is 0.05 touchdowns. So if you want to go the over on that, which seems likely he's going to score a touchdown, it's kind of a freebie that we're doing. I'm going to pull that up for everybody to see so you can see what our DFS stuff looks like as well. So there it is on the screen now. So there's the Lamar Jackson one as well. So he is over. I would do over 0.5 personally if I'm going to do that, kind of a freebie. So you have to pick a couple options here if you want to play, though. But we have tons of different prop bets for today. So you see Christian McCaffrey, just pulled that up. 5 receptions over under for him. DJ Moore, 4.5 receptions over under. Alvin Kamara, he has total yards up there as well. So we have tons of different options. You can even do baseball as well if you want to parlay, different sports. You can do that. But tons of different options for the DFSM Pick'em this week. But again, Lamar Jackson, that's the one you want to do. Over 0.5 touchdowns, kind of a gimme for us, for everybody on there. So we highly encourage you to give us a shot for the DFS Pick'em. Easy for me to say. Again, rtsports.com/DFS Pick'em. That's how you can get to that on there. And it's Lamar Jackson this week, our gimme for everybody out there, kind of a gift for everybody out there if you want to get a free one there. So let's pull up. I want to pull up the inactives again real quick before we don't have any questions on here just yet, but before I head out for the day, I want to show everybody the inactives and actives again real quick on this page here. So let's go over the main ones again. Houston, Chicago, not a lot to talk about there. Las Vegas, though, Josh Jacobs is active. He will play. He had an illness. He flew out yesterday. He is good to go. I'm not sure. It hasn't really been said what his illness is that he's dealing with, but if he's active and playing, I'm sure he's in pretty good shape there. So I'd feel decent about playing him. I know he's been splitting carries a little bit, but still, Jacobs is the best back to own in that offense. Hunter Renfrow, he is out, though, dealing with a concussion. We knew that beforehand. He will not play. Kansas City, Indianapolis, not really anything of note there. Harrison Butker is still out, so that means Matt Amendola is still starting there. Buffalo, Miami, some stuff to talk about there. Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, they are active. Gabe Davis had an ankle injury, missed last week. Dawson Knox has a foot injury, but he's active. He will play, and he's pretty good fantasy play, in my opinion, against a Miami defense that has not done well against the tight end this year. So they're active, both Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox in that game. DeAndre Swift, the next game, Detroit, Minnesota. He is officially active. TJ Hawkinson officially active. Swift, ankle injury. He played last week, but he got just seven touches, still produced big. So I'm hoping he gets a few more, maybe in the double digit this week. I would think his ankle is doing better, so maybe he'll get double digit touches this week. If that happens, I think he can do some real damage in what should be a high scoring game against the Vikings. TJ Hawkinson active as well. And that matchup, again, should be a really high scoring game. Should be a fun one to watch. Baltimore, New England. J.K. Dobbins is active, makes his season debut this week. Kenyon Drake, he is out, will not play. He is a healthy scratch with J.K. Dobbins active, so I think that's good news for Dobbins. Should get a pretty good workload. Jacoby Myers will not play for New England, dealing with a knee injury, unfortunately, and he will not play. And this is a great matchup for him. So unfortunately, it's unfortunate Myers is out of lineup because he's been a pretty good fantasy play this year as the top target in that offense. I kind of like Nelson Aguilar as the fallback option for the Patriots. Devontae Parker, too. I guess he could get more work, more targets. But I think Aguilar is probably the guy I'm looking at in that offense to produce the best at receiver. Cincinnati, New York Jets. The only one there of note is Hayden Hurst. He was questionable play because of a groin injury, but he will play this week for the Cincinnati Bengals. Not a bad play at tight end. He's been pretty good for them. Alvin Kamara with the Saints, he is active. I skipped over that Philadelphia-Washington game. Not really anything of note, except for Brian Robinson was out catching passes for the game. Good to see him recovering from his gunshot so quickly. Looks like he's going to be back in the lineup sooner than later, so that's great to see. But the Saints game, Saints and Panthers, the Saints will be with Alvin Kamara this week. He is active. He's been dealing with rib injuries, missed last week. Taysom Hill, though, rib injury as well. He is out. He will not play this week, so they will be without their gadget player for this week in New Orleans. Tony Jones Jr., healthy scratch, been backing up at running back with Alvin Kamara out, but Alvin Kamara is healthy and playing this week, so Tony Jones is out. Carolina, not really anything of note this week. I believe Laviska Shenault is active for that game, though I would not play him as a fantasy owner, but just kind of interested to see how they use him. Maybe they might use him as a punt returner, kick returner, you name it. It might happen with Shenault this week. Really talented player, just hasn't really produced to date. Again, let's talk about these afternoon games real quick before I get out of here. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them here. I don't see any questions on my Twitter feed as well. I encourage people to leave them there too. So no questions from anybody out there, but if you have anything, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments. More than happy to help you. But let's talk about these afternoon games again real quick. Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert, true game time decision, talking about doing a painkilling injection. Last time they did that medical staff screwed it up, really hurt Tyrod Taylor. He was out for a long time after they messed up that painkilling injection. So I think it's really iffy that he plays. You would think they'd play it cautious with their star quarterback, Justin Herbert, but not sure what's going to happen there. I would just steer clear of Herbert personally, because even if he plays, he could be limited in that game because of the injury, dealing with something very painful. Keenan Allen, he's a true game time decision as well with the Chargers. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. I mean, he's 50-50 to play. I'm not sure what you want to do there. It's a tough call since it's an afternoon game, but that's where we stand right now with Keenan Allen. He's a game time decision. Herbert, along those same lines, is being called a game time decision, but I would just not mess with him this week. James Conner, the reports for him are encouraging. Arizona plays the Rams in the afternoon game, but all the talk has been that he's going to play this week. He should be good to go on his ankle injury. He's been considered questionable, but it looks like Conner is going to play. Jerry Jeudy with the Denver Broncos. They play tonight, actually, but it looks like he's good to go for that matchup. He's been called questionable, but he's dealing with some sort of sternum injury is what they're calling it. He got popped last week, had to leave the game, but it looks like he's going to be good to go in that matchup. So that's another afternoon one that I wanted to talk about. And then Tampa Bay. There's a lot going on in that Green Bay-Tampa Bay game. Chris Godwin's out still with his hamstring injury. Mike Evans is suspended. They're really thin at receiver. Brashard Perryman, Russell Gage, both dealing with injuries and considered questionable to play. But all reports are right now that they are both expected to play. So Perryman, Gage look like they're good to go. Could end up leading the way at receiver for the Bucs this week. And then Julio Jones. Now he's more of a game time decision. He's going to test out his knee in pregame warmups. He missed last week. I think he's a scarier play for fantasy teams. So if you're holding out hope for him, I might just steer clear of that situation with them playing in the afternoon. And with Green Bay, Christian Watson has a hamstring injury. He's considered questionable, but reports with him are that he is not expected to play. So it's not looking like Watson will play this week. They could be hurting at receiver as well. Sammy Watkins got put on IR. He is out as well. And Randall Cobb has an illness, but it's looking like he should be good to go this week. I think Alan Lazard's really the only guy I trust in that offense right now if I'm starting a receiver for Green Bay. So that's where we stand with those late games. Again, the early games, real quick. I'm going to go over them one more time before I get out of here. I don't see any questions on here, so I don't have anything to answer for you users out there. I appreciate everybody joining me, though. Really appreciate that. So first of all, real quick, Josh Jacobs is active with the Raiders. Bills, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, both active. They will play. DeAndre Swift active. TJ Hawkinson active. So the Lions will have Swift and Hawkinson. Baltimore Ravens, J.K. Dobbins is active. Kenyon Drake is out, though. He's a healthy scratch with Dobbins back in the lineup. Jacoby Myers in that game, he is out with a knee injury. He will not play. I kind of like Nelson Aguilar as the leading receiver for the Patriots in that matchup. A good one against a bad Ravens secondary. Bengals, they will have Hayden Hurst this week. He has a groin injury, but he is active. He will play. Alvin Kamara is active for the Saints. He's been dealing with a rib injury, missed last week, but he is active, will play. Taysom Hill now, he is out, will not play for the Saints. And Tony Jones is a healthy scratch. So that's everything. It was a handful to get through all this, a lot to talk about, unfortunately. Never a good thing to talk about all these actives and inactives because that means a lot of fantasy owners are dealing with injuries. Hate to see that, but we went over everything. Afternoon games as well, kind of sketchy to deal with all of these different injuries as well. So hopefully you got some good options to deal with as backup plans if some of those guys in the afternoon games are out as well. So I do have a question on here. So I will get to that right now. I'm going to show it on here as well. Actually, here you go. Who do you like, Kittle or Higbee this week? That is a tough call. That's a great question. I think personally, if Kittle's playing, I'm going with him. Just has a higher ceiling. I do like the way Higbee has been playing this week, but he has, I just think Kittle has a higher ceiling in my opinion, and I like it with Jimmy G as his QB as well. I think it bodes well for him in that offense. And if Kittle's playing, I think he's healthy, should get a good amount of work. Higbee is the safe play if you want to really play it safe. I still think he's going to have a decent game as well, but I like Kittle just a little better because I think he has a higher ceiling. So that was a great question, Kittle or Higbee this week. I think they're similar plays, but I like Kittle because he has a higher ceiling. So great to get a question there. Appreciate you sending that in. And I appreciate everybody watching this week. It's been a lot of fun. I love going over the inactive and get everybody ready for their games this week. Should be some great games. I always answer. One user writes in, gives me his questions for the week, and he always asks me my survivor picks. And if you look at this week, it is a tough call. There's not really any gimme games out there like past week. So I think there could be a lot of great close games. I kind of said I'd go with Kansas City if I had to pick one, even though they're on the road against Indianapolis, and I hate picking those road teams, but that would be the one I feel most comfortable with Indianapolis player. And we got another question on here, so let's show it on here as well. Bateman, Lamb, or Curtis Samuel? I'm rolling with Curtis Samuel still. I'm confident in him. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. I like Lamb as well. I like Bateman too. So I think you have three good options there. But I'm rolling with Curtis Samuel. It's tough for me to sit him right now. He's been so productive, getting the ball in various different ways. So I'm just rolling with Samuel right now. I think he's the best play out of the three. All three of them are pretty good options, though. So I would feel comfortable with any of those guys. But I like Samuel the most out of those. Great question, though. I mean, Samuel's been terrific to start the year. And I just love the way he's involved in that offense right now. And he's clearly the favorite target of Carson Wentz. 15 catches in 2 games, touchdowns in each of those games. He's getting chances to run the ball as well. He has 20 targets in those 2 games. I just don't trust that offense in Dallas still. I love CeeDee Lamb, great player. I'd feel a lot better about him if Dak Prescott is his quarterback. And Rashad Bateman, 100 yards last week, touchdowns each of his first 2 games. But my concern with him is his lack of catches and targets. He has 6 catches on 12 targets in 2 games. There's still a run first offense. So that worries me a little bit there. I think Samuel's the way to go here, but a great question, and good luck to you this week. All right. So we got to some questions. Really enjoy going over those with everybody, and hopefully they work out for you this week. Again, both those questions, you have good options though. So that's a positive for you. And if you have a feeling one way or the other, I'm good with you going with that. But again, thanks again for writing in. Appreciate it. And thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a lot of success week 3. Like I said, should be some great games. Should be a lot of fun to watch all the action this week in the NFL. Good luck to you, and thanks for watching. This has been Jeff Power for Real Time Fantasy Sports. Win all those games in week 3. Good luck.